Hi there, probability. So we're going to start off by just revising some basics about probability to make sure we've got those under our belt. And I'm going to pose you just a few questions. I'm going to get you to pause, just think of the answers, write them down, and see if they match with what I say. And so first of all, I want to know the three different ways that we can write a probability. And I don't mean words like unlikely or impossible or those kind of things. I mean actual values. So what three ways can we write the value of a probability? And in that case, for those values, what's the lowest and the highest value that we can have for each? And then a complete set of probabilities, e.g. like if you're rolling a dice, there are all the different outcomes from a dice. If you add together the probabilities of all those different outcomes, what do they always add to? So basically, what do a set of probabilities always sum to? And lastly, what do we mean by probability? So basically define the word. In a brief sentence, what do we actually mean by probability? Okay, so I want you to pause the video, write down your answers, and then see if they match. So pause now. Okay, so we've unpaused. Let's have a little look at what the answers are going to be over here. So what do we have for the three ways you can write a probability, the value of a probability? We've got a fraction, a decimal, and a percentage, not necessarily in that order, but all three of those are perfect ways of writing down the value of a probability. And so what's the lowest and the highest values? Well, if we're talking decimal values, we can put 0 is the lowest you can have. You can't have anything lower than 0, and the highest is 1. Now, of course, if we're talking a percentage, then the lowest would still be 0%, but the highest would be 100%. But that's equivalent to 1. You know, the decimal number 1 is equivalent to 100%. And so a complete set of probabilities, all the different probabilities from one particular thing, like rolling a dice, if you put together all the probabilities of the different outcomes, what do they sum to? They always sum to 1. Probability, a set of probabilities always adds to 1. And what do we mean by the word probability? Well, if I was going to define the word in a very short sentence, it would be probability is the chance of something happening, or the chances of something happening. Okay. Right, let's have a look at some theoretical stuff then and use some of those things that we've just come across. Now, these probabilities have been written as decimals, which is quite common. We're saying an experiment has 4 outcomes. Now, for the point of what we're talking about, it doesn't matter what that experiment is, it's got 4 outcomes. Maybe it's a spinner with 4 sides on it, and the sides have different probabilities of being landed upon. And the question that we've got here is, what's the probability of outcome B? Well, we can use the fact that if I add up all of these 4 probabilities, you know, if I do 0.1 and I add to it whatever the probability of B is, and then I add the probability of C, and I add the probability of D, these are all the possible outcomes for this experiment. They will always add up to 1. So I know whatever this missing number is, it means it must work with the others to make it add up to 1. So here's what I can do. If I add up the 3 that I've got, so 0.1 plus 0.2 plus 0.3, I know that that equals 0.6. Oh, that is a 0 there. 0.6. And if I want to know what B is, I need to take it away from 1 because I know they must all add up to 1. So 1 take away 0.6 is 0.4. So the probability of B is going to be 0.4. It has to be because they have to add to 1. Because 1 is certain, on my little scale of probability, 1 is certain. Well, it's certain when I do this experiment I'm going to get one of these things, so together the probabilities must add up to 1. There we go, probabilities sum to 1. Right, what have we got here? We've got a question. I've got 3 of these questions, and I want you to do these questions, and it's pretty much what I've just done with that other question. There's different event or different outcomes from something, and each time there's 1 missing, or in this case there's 2 missing. You need to use the information there to try and figure out what those ones are. So I want you to pause the video and try and figure out what the missing probabilities are and answer those quick questions, and then unpause the video and see if it matches with my answers. So pause now. Okay, we've unpaused the video. So just like before, we know that these are going to add up to 1. You know, if I add up that, with whatever D is, it's going to equal 1. So let's add up the ones that I know first of all. So 0.2 plus 0.3 plus 0.8 0.15. That equals 0.65. And if I take that away from 1, I know the answer is going to be 0.35. So probability of D is 0.35. And we can do the same thing with here. People voted in a town election. What's the probability they voted for different parties? We're going to add all of those up, and I'm going to get my calculator out. 0.41 plus 0.24 plus 0.22 plus 0.04. They all add up to 0.91. And if I take that 0.91 away from 1, I'm left with 0.09, and that must be the missing probability in there. And a bag has only red, white, and blue and yellow counters, so those are the only possible things I can get out. A counter is taken from the bag. Here are some probabilities. The probability of taking a white counter, so this one, is twice the probability of taking a yellow. Okay, I'll be interested to know whether you got this one right. Now, a good way to think of these is ratios, right? So probability and proportion are basically the same thing. So 0.1 of all the counters in this bag would have been red, 0.3 would have been blue. Firstly, to work out what's the missing probability that white and yellow must add up to. I'll come down to my little thing that I was just going to draw out there in a second. Let's add up 0.1 and 0.3. Well, that obviously equals 0.4. Take it away from 1. And we've got 0.6. So I know that white and yellow must add up to this, up to 0.6. But I've been told that white and yellow, there's twice the probability of getting white than there is yellow. So let's write that as a ratio, 2 to 1. There are going to be twice as many white ones as there are yellows, because probability is the same as proportion. So it's a case of sharing my 0.6 in the ratio of 2 to 1. Now remember, if you're sharing in a ratio, you add, divide, multiply. So you add up the parts of your ratio, so there's 3 parts. You divide the thing you're trying to share. Now I'm trying to share this probability between those 3 parts, which gets you 0.2. Each share is worth 0.2, which means yellow has one of those shares, so 0.2 on this side. White has 2 of those shares, so it's 2 lots of 0.2, 0.4. One side is twice the other, and that's the probabilities. They all add up to 1. Probability and proportion are basically the same thing. Okay. Similar to that, then let's have a little look at probability from a table. And we're going to have a two-way table here. It says so there. There we go, two-way table. Oops, well that's a bit rubbish, let's get rid of that. Researchers surveyed 100 students on which superpower they would most like to have. This two-way table displays data for the sample of students who responded to the surveys. Basically, we asked a load of students and put the answers in the table, and here it is. So we had male and female students, and could give the possibilities of whether they would like to be able to fly, be invisible, or teleport from place to place. And remember how a two-way table works. So if you pick any particular cell, like let's pick this one here, this cell is the number of females who said that they would like to be invisible. Or if you pick this one down here, this is the number of males who wanted to teleport. Or if we're going along the totals columns, obviously they represent the total of the column or row that they're talking about. So 52 is the number of females. What's the total number of people that wanted to fly? Well, male and females together, that'd be 38. And of course, the really important number is the bottom right one, which is the total number of people. And it said 100 students, just like it does up there. Okay, so let's have a little look at the probability. Right, if a student is chosen at random, what's the probability that... Well, okay, before it even says what particular question it is, I can tell from this statement that it says if a student is chosen at random, that means it's out of everyone. I can tell that initially when I write my probability down, and I'm probably going to write it as a fraction here, it's going to be out of 100. I don't know what out of 100, but it will be something out of 100 because it's any student chosen at random. Now, what I want us to get used to is this. Sometimes they will put a sentence that says, if a male student is chosen at random, what's the probability that... Well, this is different. They've put what we call a condition on here. This is a given condition that says that we know they are male. That means then I can actually ignore all the females and I'm just looking at the males column. So I know that my fraction here is actually going to be out of 48 because of this condition. Okay, it can get a bit confusing, I know, initially when you talk about this, but let's look now. So let's put in here, so if a student is chosen at random, so I know it's out of 100, what's the probability they're male and they would want to fly? Well, male and the people that want to fly is there. That's 26. So that would be 26 out of, and because it says it's at any student chosen at random, it's out of 100. It didn't say they had to be male. It just says that we want the final thing to be male and fly. It doesn't say that it's just chosen males. It says it's chosen out of everyone. This second sentence is saying if a male student, so we know we're just talking about the males, what's the probability that they would want to fly? Well, it's 26 again, but this time, because it says it's male, we know it's out of just the men, so it has to be out of 48. Notice I'm not simplifying my fractions here. When we're talking about probability and we're doing fractions, unless it says to simplify, usually we don't. And there are good reasons to do that, which we'll come on to when we do the probability trees. But unless it says to simplify, we don't usually bother. We leave it as it is. All right? Okay, so watch out for these given conditions. So if a student is chosen at random, what's the probability they were a female student who could teleport? And we'll come back to that question. I'll just put it up in a second. What's the probability of the female student who could teleport? Okay, so we've got it's out of all the students, so we know it's out of 100. We've got female, and they would teleport. Females that could teleport is here, isn't it? That's 8. So it's 8 out of 100. There's no condition on this one. This one there is. If someone who said teleport is chosen at random, so we know they said teleport, so we're only looking at this row here. So it's out of 18. Without even looking at the rest of the question, I know it's out of 18. What's the probability that they were female? Well, how many of them were female out of the ones that said teleport? That's 8 out of 18. Okay. Well, I've written all over my question at the bottom here, so I'm going to have to rewrite some of that. Let's put 8 out of 100. Oops. Let's put this one was 8 out of 18. Right. If a student is chosen at random, what's the probability that they were female? Okay, so have we got a condition here? No, we haven't. It just says a student, so we know it's out of the 100. What's the probability they were female? Well, I don't want any of these individual, female entrants here. I want all of the females, and that's 52. So 52 out of 100. All right, get the idea? Yes or no? Yes. Let's say yes. Let's be positive. Okay, all right, if you've got some questions coming up here, I want you to write down the probabilities of the following things here. I'd suggest that fractions are a good way to write down these probabilities. There's all the questions I want you to do. I want you to pause the video, do the answers, and then see if they match with mine. Okay, so pause the video now. Okay, we've unpaused. Let's have a look. Have we got any conditions here? Let's see. So someone selected at random is an adult who is seated on the balcony. So someone selected at random, just someone. So we know it's out of 205. No condition there. An adult on the balcony. Adult's balcony, that's 37. So it's 37 out of 205. Well done if you got that. Someone selected at random is a child. Okay, so again, it's someone selected at random. So I know it's out of the total. That's out of everyone. What's the probability they're a child? Well, that's just the children. That's going to be this figure here, 93. 93 out of 205. Again, this is a proportion, isn't it? Probability, proportion, pretty much the same thing. Next question, C. An adult selected at random. Right, okay, so we've got a condition here. This is a condition. We're saying they have to be an adult, so it's only out of the total number of adults, which is 112. What's the probability that they were sat in the stalls? That's 36. Oh, yeah, these are, if you don't go to the theatre, you might not know, these are 3 different places you can sit in the theatre. The stalls are down on the floor near the stage. The circle's like the first first balcony bit, I suppose. The first the first floor, and then the balcony is even further up. Anyway, so these ones are on the stools. So that's 36 out of 112. D, someone selected at random. Right, someone. There's no condition here, is there? So it's out of 205, out of the total. What's the chances they were in the circle and a child? Circle, child. That's 21. There are 21 children sat in the circle. Oh, it's saying my computer's running out of charge, but I'm sure we can finish this off before that finishes. Should we get rid of that so it can't see it? Yeah, go away. Right, someone from the balcony selected at random is an adult. Right, someone from the balcony. We have a condition here, so they must be out of. So how many were on the balcony? I'm writing ahead, and I shouldn't be. Right, so balcony. There were only 68, so we know that our fraction is out of 68. What's the probability they were an adult? Well, there were 37 adults on the balcony. So it's 37 out of 68 is the probability that someone from the balcony is selected at random and they are an adult. Okay, a little bit more then. So researchers surveyed 100 students on which superpower they'd most like to have. So we're back to this one again. I want you to write down 3 sentences this time. So we're going to give you 3 probabilities. I want you to look through the table, and I want you to decide, where have you seen these numbers? What could be the question that would result in these probabilities? Okay, right. So pause the video now, and then write down your 3 sentences or 3 questions, and unpause when you're done. Okay, we've unpaused, and I've pre-written these because my writing's so bad that we really need to write them out. And let's have a look. So 10 out of 100. Well, there's the 10. It's the only place 10 appears, and it's out of 100, and it's males that teleport out of everyone. So you need a sentence something like, someone selected at random, so it selects everyone, is a male who chose to teleport. Yep, because it's out of everyone. 52 out of 100. 52, where does that appear? That's here. That's the total number of females out of 100. So I have, we need to say, someone selected at random, because that's the 100 bit, is a female, which is, of course, 52. We don't need any other particular bits in the female, so just the females, yeah? So it's someone selected at random as a female. And lastly, 32 out of 52. We've got a condition here. It's out of 52, so it's just the females. And if we select a female at random, so we know it's out of 52, what's the probability that they chose invisibility? So that's 32. That's where the 32 is, out of 52. Okay, bit trickier that, working it backwards. And your sentence might be written slightly different to mine, but as long as it's got the main elements. Right, probability from a Venn diagram. We are kind of getting there now. Let's have a look at this. What have we got? We've got a Venn diagram, and this is showing the number of people who like tea, coffee, or neither. And should know the basics of a Venn diagram. We've got this circle represents people that like tea. This circle is people that like coffee, and outside of there, obviously they don't like either. And the ones that's in the overlap like both tea and coffee. Okay, I've got some questions for you here. First of all, I want you to pause the video, and then I want you to answer those questions that I've put there. Unpause it when you're done. Okay, so we've unpaused. Let's hope the battery on the computer lasts. So, number 1, how many people in total liked coffee? Well, that's the whole of this circle. It's not just 22, it's the 18 as well. You need to add the people that also like tea. So you need to put those 2 things together, and that is 40. So 40 people in total liked coffee. How many people are asked in total? Right, you need to add up all of these things. The people that didn't like either, the people that just like tea, the people that like both, and the people that liked coffee. And I'm going to get my calculator out just to make sure I've got this right. 22 plus 18 plus 16 plus 4 is 60. There were 60 people asked in total. And how many people like tea but not coffee? Right, let's have a little look. Where's this? So this is the tea bit but not the coffee. So we don't want the 18, we just want the 16. And they are the ones who like tea but not coffee. Right, I've got some more questions down here. You can read them for yourself. They've put spaces for the fractions in. They look a lot like my maths questions, don't they? But they can't be, surely. I want you to pause the video again, answer those questions, and then unpause when you're done. Okay, right, let's have a little look then. We've got a person is selected at random. What's the probability that they liked coffee? Well, they're selected at random, so it's out of everyone. So we know the fraction is out of 60. What's the probability they like coffee? Well, there are 40 people who like coffee in total. So we need the 40. We don't just want the 22 because these 18 like coffee as well. It doesn't say that they can't like tea, it just says that they definitely like coffee. Right, what's the probability that if a person is selected at random, again, so we know it's out of the full amount because there's no condition there, what's the probability they only like tea? So we know that this is going to be out of the 16. We're not going to include the 18 because they like coffee too, just the ones that like tea. And down here, a person who likes tea is selected. That is our condition. So we know this is conditional. So we need just out of the people that like tea. Now the people that like tea is the 16 and the 18 put together, which is a total of 34. So there are 34 people who like tea. So both these fractions are going to be out of 34. Now what's the probability that one of those people that is selected that they like coffee too? Well, 18 of them like coffee too. So it's 18 out of 34. What's the probability they only like tea? Well, we already know the number of people that only like tea is 16, but this time it's 16 out of 34, the people that drink tea, possibly tea and coffee, but definitely tea. Right, good. Hope that's given you, got the brain cells going again. Hope you remember some stuff about probability. I've set a My Maths task to go with this, which is conditional probability. So, look, there's some familiar looking questions. So there will be questions, some of which have got conditions on, some of which don't. I want you to work out what those probabilities are, please. Right, good luck.